Okay, how's it going? Bring the questions in. I'm going to put in the chat the link that you can use if you want to come on and talk to me on video. Just click that. Few questions from people who messaged in before the stream. Your thoughts on getting with a woman who has children already? Well, the Catholic Church allows it, so I'm not going to say that you can't do it. However, it definitely adds extra difficulties and it's not ideal. But oftentimes, whatever's ideal isn't realistically achievable. And for you, it's possible that could be the best option. But you got to be aware of the extra difficulties that it comes along with. Any ways to build a masculine face? I don't know what you mean by a masculine face. I'm guessing you mean lean. So, in that case, you would just want to lose fat. But the thing is that crack addicts have lean faces, but they're not really masculine faces. They're just emaciated. So I'm also guessing you mean some level of muscularity as well. Now, you can't really make the muscles in your face bigger, but what you could do is just get your strength up to a decent level in the gym, and bench pressing and deadlifting are going to make your neck look thicker. So that will be a good way to get that done. In terms of actual bone structure, though, that's all genetic. Next one. How can we have free will if God knows everything? I find it difficult to explain to my friend. Well, God's knowledge of how things are going to turn out doesn't actually determine them. So let me give you an example. I know for certain that my 10-month-old daughter, if she played a grandmaster at chess, would lose. No chance at all of any other outcome. But my knowledge of that fact doesn't actually determine it. Does that make sense? If you go into the Catholic Encyclopedia or read some of the discussions about this exact question that have been had over the centuries, you'll find a similar argument in there too. I'd recommend having a look at St. Augustine or St. Thomas Aquinas on this. Should females go to school? Why are you saying females? Why not just girls or women? I always find that weird. People who writing in the red pill sphere refer to females. Yeah, if what you mean by that is should they get educated? Of course they could, because we want them to be able to educate their children as mothers who are the heart of the home. When you educate a mother, you educate a whole family. So we definitely want women to be educated. The actual question is, should anyone go to school? Or should they be homeschooled? If what you mean is school as the institution, like a public school run by the government, that's a separate question entirely. But I'm taking that to mean, should women be educated? And yes, definitely, they should be. Where to find someone who's wife material if you don't really believe in Catholicism anymore? Well, what do you believe in? Maybe you're not husband material. That's the problem. I don't know what you believe in and why you would even care if someone is wife material or not if you don't believe in Catholicism. So let's say that you fell away from the faith and now you're a Protestant of some description, and you think that having a wife who works outside the home is okay, you don't mind her going on the pill and all the rest of it, and you believe in divorce too. I'm not really sure that it matters too much if you find someone who is wife material or not, because your standard for wife material is already gone if you don't believe in Catholicism anymore. So, what are you looking for and why? The answer really is you need to revert, and then you just find a Catholic girl and live out the faith. and follow the precepts of the church. If a husband does not know how to change, what can we do? Well, you can tell him what behaviors of his that you are finding are a big turnoff, and that is enough to wake most guys up to the fact that they need to act in a different way. You can also praise the behaviors that you want to see more of: affection and softness and attention and feeling respected and admired. Do a lot to encourage a man to actually act the way you want him to. But sounds like he might actually need more help, in which case he needs to go and talk to someone who can actually give him the advice that he never got growing up so he can actually do a proper job of this. That's where I'd go next. We got someone calling in. Josh. Let's get Josh on. The guest is in the green room. And he's muted. Josh, you going to unmute and come on or not? Doesn't seem like it. Try calling in again and let's see what happens. All right, next question. Are your parents Catholic? If not, how do you deal with the thought of them not being saved? No, they're not Catholic, but also you don't know for sure who's saved and who's not. It's possible that Protestants can be saved, that atheists can be saved. So that thought doesn't bother me at all. What does a stay-at-home wife do if the husband cheats? Divorce or stay with him? Well, the Catholic Church teaches that divorce is never okay. So that answers your question. This is a hard teaching, isn't it? That forgiveness is the answer. The way you frame that question, that divorce is an option, is not. So stays with him is the answer. Right. Let's try again. Josh, for some reason, you're stuck in the green room. I don't know why. Normally that doesn't happen. Send the question in. How long should you wait to propose for marriage? There's no set time. So you should propose when you're confident that this is the girl that you want to marry. Now, realistically, that's going to take a couple of months for you to actually get to know her character well enough and to be able to decide whether you're a good fit for each other. But people dragging it out up to, a whole year until they propose, I don't think that's necessary. There's no official teaching on how long it should be, but guys who aren't pussyfooting around with this, 12 months is going to be long enough for sure. Okay, next one. In a long distance relationship, should the man or woman move? Easy. The woman should move to the man because the man is the leader. And patriarchy means that she comes to him. He's going to be set up with a job or a business and also have a support network where he's going to be raising his family. So she moves to him. And if you go back ancestrally as well, think about the history of anthropology. It's very dangerous for a man to move around from place to place outside of his family or kinship group. Far more likely to get killed, basically, putting it bluntly, in a tribal situation. Whereas a young woman who's walking around from place to place and moving in with a guy that she meets from a group that she's not a member of, people are pretty welcoming. Guys aren't going to kill a young, attractive woman. They're going to welcome the fact that she's arrived. So that is actually, in fact, what happened for most of human history. The woman went to the man. What do you think of Bitcoin? If you've researched it and you understand it and you want to invest in it, go for it. Same as with any investment. Don't invest in something you don't understand. Best info sources for learning about Catholicism. Go and talk to your priest. If you want to learn more about Catholicism, actually start having conversations, forge a relationship with your priest. That's what he's there for. Is actually his job. The other thing is you can go online on the Catholic Encyclopedia, type in whatever topic you want to learn about, and then you get really detailed entries on exactly that. So I would recommend those two things first of all. Talk to your priest, use the Catholic Encyclopedia. What is your temperament on the traditional model, if you happen to know? Yeah, choleric. What do you think of the latest statement the Pope made about mankind having something hearts and there being only a few sinners? Well, this is related to the idea that, you know, it's possible maybe the hell's going to be empty. And the fact is that the traditional teaching on this is that we got no chance of an empty hell. So I disagree with that, if that's the one you're referring to, as do pretty much all of the traditional theologians across the centuries. But whenever you hear statement XYZ from Pope Francis, or in fact any other pope, unless it is an infallible statement or it's official magisterial teaching, you don't have to agree with it. It's not binding. So a pope can say all kinds of things that are controversial, maybe even wrong in some cases. But that doesn't affect the actual doctrine of infallibility, which says that he is safeguarded from binding the faithful to error in matters of faith and morals when defining doctrine authoritatively. General dating tips for dating an atheist feminist girl as a young man in RCIA. If you are inspiring and interesting to her and somebody she respects in general, then she's going to take an interest in all the beliefs that you hold deeply in all areas of your life. That should just come naturally. So I wouldn't obsess about trying to convert her. Just be fun to be around, be someone whose opinion she cares about, and it will come naturally. Dealing with disrespectful female co-workers on a daily basis. Should I leave or can I salvage the situation? I don't see that it's somehow different that they are female co-workers. It's just disrespectful co-workers. And you need to think about why you're inviting disrespect. It's the same thing as if it was men. What is it you're doing that makes them feel comfortable disrespecting you? Figure that out and stop doing it. How to develop leadership skills in order to turn an atheist feminist girl into a Christian future wife. You can just start by developing the leadership skills to get other men to respect you. A lot of guys scratch their heads about this. How can I become a leader so the woman cares about what I have to say, etc., etc.? It's unlikely if you are someone that other men don't really look to, don't really value the opinions of. It's really unlikely that women are going to see you any differently. So work on being a leader among men, first of all. So in your friendship group, you should be the one that people turn to for advice, that inspires people, And then after that, you can worry about how to lead women because they're actually less forgiving than men are. It's like people who are bad at small talk. Much better to work on being able to approach a male stranger and just shoot the breeze and have a relaxed, easygoing conversation before you try that on a girl, because it's a lot harder with a girl. Uh, do I have an argument against priests' sexual scandals? I don't even know what that question means. They happened, so you wouldn't want to try to argue that they didn't happen. That would be stupid. So I'm assuming it can't be that. Do you mean what to say if someone says, but what about the priest's sexual scandals? Well, you just say, what about them? The church has bad people in it because it has humans in it. And human beings are a mixture of good and bad. So, yes, the divine element in the church is totally free from sin, but the human element is going to be corrupt in all kinds of ways. So, I'm not even surprised that we get scandals like this. There's going to be all kinds of corruption for as long as there are human beings in this world, at least, in the church. You can point to the fact that the actual statistical incidence of sexual abuse within the church is a lot lower than it is in the general population by percentage. And it's also a lot lower than it is in the public school system. So there's no need to hyper focus on this as a problem that's unique to the church or especially bad in the church. It's actually worse in schools and worse among the general public. So you could just say that, and that will be the end of it. My girlfriend, most of the time, is complaining about stuff that I didn't catch up on or that I'm supposed to know. Well, stop leaving stuff undone and know the things that you're supposed to know. It sounds like you're just letting things slide that you shouldn't be letting slide, right? What to do if your partner can't get past you having previous relationships? Seems weird. It sounds like he's unable to forgive you for your past, but does he even need to forgive you? If it's just that you had a previous relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean you even did anything wrong. Let's say this is worst case scenario that you're someone, I'm not saying you are, but someone who had a high body count before this relationship right now. And you have turned your life around, you've repented. He shouldn't have a problem with that if he's Christian and able to forgive. I'm sure there's plenty of things in his past as well that he's had to repent about. Also, what is a partner? Doesn't sound like a husband to me. A partner normally is something that indicates he hasn't asked you to be his fiance and you haven't got married yet. So he's not really treating you that seriously. So it seems he's got this really high standard for what he expects from you, but he's not actually treating you according to that high standard himself. Not a good sign, if you ask me. What's the most meaningful experience you've had with Christ? Confession. How to tell my wife I don't want to pull out anymore. I want to be either open to life or chaste. You just tell her. You just say, look, this is what the church teaches, and this is what we have to do. Otherwise, it's mortally sinful. Simple as that. You don't need to tiptoe around this topic. You just say, I want to follow what the church teaches on this matter. If you're not Catholic and you just decided that pulling out is a bad idea and you want to be open to life or chaste, then you need to figure out why that is and go to the only church that actually upholds that teaching properly. Become Catholic and then explain to her that it's part of that overall change in your life. Should your wife ideally be pregnant every year if no contraception? Your wife's going to get pregnant when God sends you kids. So you're just open to life, and then what happens, happens. You don't need to worry about what's ideal. What on earth is going on with the Pope? That question's too big and too vague. I don't know what you're thinking of. I'm just going to assume that you're thinking that the Pope is a bad Pope for some reason because of something that he said that's been reported in the media that you have seen. The simple answer to that is that there have been many, many terrible popes throughout history. Doesn't change the fact that the papacy itself is rock solid. So infallibility means that the papacy, Christ's church, is actually the ground and pillar of truth. So because Christ is truth, his church can't teach error, because if it could, then it could lead souls to hell. Truth can't teach error. That's why Christ guarantees the Holy Spirit to actually safeguard his church from being able to teach error. So it doesn't really matter if a particular pope is a bad man, for example. Maybe he's financially corrupt, or maybe he is immoral in his own personal actions. No one is saying that any pope is sinless. So hopefully that answers your question. A pope can even be heretical in his private beliefs. Doesn't change the fact that you can't get error from the seat of the papacy when it comes to defining matters of faith or morals authoritatively to bind the faithful. All right, those were all the advanced questions. Let's get on to some of these other ones as well. If you've got any other ones, drop them in. Does texting kill a woman's attraction? It depends. You could. Depends how much you're texting and what you're texting. You could text all kinds of nonsense that would make her think that you're weird and boring and she doesn't want anything to do with you. But texting itself isn't going to do it. If you're asking that question, I think that you should probably be careful about what you say to women in general, whether it's on text or just face to face or on the phone. It's almost like you need to just have a look at some of the basics about how to attract women, how to hold conversations. The text isn't some kind of special tool that changes everything. I struggle with praying in front of others, like grace before meals. Any advice to overcome this? Start doing it. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Put yourself into situations that force you to confront your weaknesses. Otherwise, you'll just end up doubling down on your weak areas, becoming more and more anxious, and things will get worse for you. I'm an Anabaptist Unitarian. Why should I become Roman Catholic? Your church teaches that it can teach you error because it says that it's not infallible. So why would you want to entrust your soul to that particular Protestant sect? Why are you confident in it? Every single other Protestant sect in the world thinks that your sect is wrong. Your sect also thinks that Christ wasn't divine and didn't rise from the dead. So how's he going to save you if death defeated him? Those would be enough questions for me to doubt that particular sect. Losing fat makes you look old very often. Tread carefully. Depends. If you're really fat, losing a bit of fat can make you look younger. Also, it's a bit different for men compared to women. I don't think it's good for women to be too lean. Being educated makes you a better person. Sometimes not. Some of the most wicked people in history have been highly educated. And in general, a lot of the worst stuff that's ever been done is by high IQ people. So there's that to think about. In John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, there's the line, nice fella. No, was it? Clever fella ain't hardly ever a nice fella, I think Slim says. It's true. Definitely true. What is the proper response when people take the Lord's name in vain in front of you? Who? Are they Catholic? Is it someone who doesn't really understand what he's doing properly? What's your relationship to the person? What's the context? Is someone going to receive your criticism or your rebuke well? Is someone else going to do it instead of you? There's all kinds of things that factor into that. In general, though, you just want to explain to them that that's not a good thing to be doing. How to try Protestant friends open up to Catholicism. If they respect you in general and are interested in what you believe in, they're naturally going to be interested in the fact that you are Catholic as well. So I would just focus on that first of all. If they're asking questions and they're receptive to hearing what you have to say, then you can focus on whatever you think is most beautiful about the church. And that would be a great conversation. Start that. Why do you consider Protestantism the feminism of Christianity? Well, Pope means Papa, and the Papacy is patriarchy. Protestantism rejected that hierarchical structure instituted by Christ. Protestantism has an authority problem with the papacy and therefore with the patriarchy as well. And this is why, as a Protestant, you can go to any number of Protestant sects and be taught by a female priest. And if that's not enough to convince you that it's the feminism of Christianity, then I don't know what else to tell you. We could look at the fact that it allows contraception and divorce, just like feminism does. Maybe that's another parallel that will open your mind up to the fact that Protestantism is the closest thing you can get to Christian feminism. You could also look at the fact that it's perfectly happy with wives working outside the home. It's even happy with stay-at-home husbands. Don't forget as well that during the Reformation, the nunneries were abolished. And that had very, very far and deep consequences for the rest of Western culture after that. Because it used to be that either a woman is married or she's a nun, basically. Those were your options. But by abolishing nuns, Protestantism basically gave rise to a whole new social class of single women who were neither wives nor nuns. And not even pagan societies tolerated that. So the Reformation basically created the boss babe. And that is another element of feminism in Protestantism. What's the Catholic teaching on getting tattoos? You can just look this up. Like, you can Google that in 2 seconds. You're allowed to get them. Simple. Should a man propose to a woman while in school? If so, how can one support her? Part-time job or waiting to propose? You could do. You're talking about proposing her. So why would you need to support her? You're not married. You haven't moved in together. You haven't got a child together yet. So there's that. You can get married while you're young, and that's fine. And you can just get a job. I think you kind of answered your own question. Due to the responsibility of having children, should all Catholic men try to have good money? And should all Catholic women marry a man that makes enough from the beginning? I don't know what you mean by good money, and a lot of this is going to depend on how frugal you are. There are people with stay at home wives and kids who make under the average wage. You might not like the way that they live if you're used to buying lots of fancy stuff, but they can live like that. So it depends what you mean by good money. Most people, if they want to have a stay at home wife and a large family, have to get good at living frugally and prioritizing their lives accordingly. If you make that choice, in the courting stage, how much should you say no and set boundaries? For example, how do you ask her to stop having male friends? If you're just courting, then she doesn't have to obey you. So bear that in mind. That's super important. She's not your wife. And you should just think of this in general terms. Like when you interact with people, your male friends, strangers, how do you set boundaries? All you're asking is for her to treat you with respect. So it's not magical suddenly that you're courting. I don't even like the word courting because it gets people thinking they're doing something really mystical and old fashioned. You can just call it dating. And the question you're asking here is, how can I get people to treat me with respect? And you should be doing that in all areas of your life the whole time and just do the same thing when it comes to this particular girl. I'm 19, gonna get married soon. By the time I'm 20, I know you did something similar. Give us a bit of insight on how you did it. Also, thinking children in 2 to 3 years. There's no secrets. You get a job, you try to spend less than you earn, and that's basically it. If you're asking questions about how do you support a family, you might not be able to buy lots of stuff. It might be difficult, but you just get it done day by day. Are you Catholic? Make sure that you're following everything that the church teaches and you're praying and you're trusting that God will provide for your family because God's the main provider for your family, not you. You have to work, obviously, but in terms of the actual opportunities that come your way for you to make the most of, Providence will put in front of you what you need. I'm thinking about becoming a priest, but I'm afraid that I'll be told to go back to the world after leaving the seminary as a 40-year-old man. I'm currently 27. I'm not sure what the question is. If the priesthood is your vocation, then that is what you should do. And you shouldn't get anxious about the future. You should follow what you believe is God's plan for you that He's calling you to. Having courage means doing things even though you feel a bit afraid of them. I think that's your question. You're afraid, but should you do it anyway? You should. Plenty of stories in the Bible of people feeling afraid about doing what God has called them to do, but they do it. And in fact, God gets angry with them when they prefer their own judgment to His and say, No, I know best. I don't think I should do that with my life, God. I know better than you do. My wife and me have had our first baby and we're super happy, but it's so much work. I understand you have 6 kids. I got 7 kids. How do you do it? Well, going from 0 children to 1 child is going to be a bit of a shock. You need to actually think about where you're struggling with your day to day routines and make plans to prioritize the areas that are difficult. So you're actually being more systematic and consistent with them. Hopefully, your wife is not working outside the home and she's just got all that time every day to be able to focus on the household and the baby. But a normal newborn is going to be doing a lot of breastfeeding and sleeping. So there should be tons of time during the day where the baby's just asleep and your wife can get things done. I don't know what work you're referring to, whether it's housework or whatever, but you'll be able to do it if you actually manage your time properly. How can one know for certain what church teaching is, since different Catholics have different answers, interpretations? Well, just because there's a Catholic feminist who says that working wives are okay doesn't change the actual statements in the magisterial teaching. You can just look at what the popes have said about this. So the simple answer is that there's the teaching, and then there's people saying something different. So it's not hard for you to find the answer. What's good and bad entertainment? Do you watch movies? That's a weird question. So, do you want like a list of entertainment that I personally approve? You need to just think about whether it's virtuous and what the content of the entertainment is. Like, I'm pretty sure you know what a film that's bad for you is about and what it encourages you to think about and feel versus a film that's good for you. Same with books, same with song lyrics. Are you asking about whether it's even okay to watch movies at all, or listen to books, or read books, or listen to music at all? Um, in that case, you can just refer to what the moral theologians write about this, which is that, yeah, for sure, all those forms of entertainment can be okay, but it depends out about the particular film, the particular book, the particular piece of music. So I'm not going to give you some list of things that are personally ones that I approve, but you can watch movies, you can read books, you can listen to music. There's nothing wrong with those forms of entertainment. It's not like the Puritans who wanted to ban plays because they thought that there was something intrinsically evil about drama. Can you explain how the man is more made in the image of God than the woman is? Well, the easy way to understand that is that scripture says that Adam's made first, Eve is made from Adam's rib. Think about the symbolism of that. Adam names Eve. Naming something is about having authority over it. And we're also told that man is the glory of God, but woman is the glory of man. So that's the quick answer. I've heard you talk about patriotism or honoring the fatherland as a sub virtue to one of the cardinal virtues. How is race mixing not an action against that virtue? Well, you're assuming that race has something to do with patriotism and the fatherland, and that race makes culture. But it doesn't, as you can see abundantly and painfully clear proof of in the fact that the Nordic countries, just like Rome in ancient times, can lose their cultures while maintaining their racial identity. So the genes didn't change, the race didn't change, but the culture definitely did. And we've also got the fact that the Catholic Church, just putting it bluntly, has never objected to race mixing, and in fact teaches that the whole human race forms one family, descended from common ancestor, Adam and Eve. So the whole idea of race mixing is a weird materialistic concept that is contrary to what the church teaches in the first place. I guess you didn't know that. The church teaches that the human race forms one family and has never objected to mixed race marriages. Do you think our culture's obsession with what is going on in Israel speaks to a subconscious desire to reconnect with religion? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure the desire to reconnect with religion is subconscious. I think that there's a religious revival going on all over the West. So it's probably a manifestation of it, but I don't think it's subconscious. The whole New Age phenomenon is a desire to reconnect with religion, right? People going into the jungle and taking psychedelics are also seeking religious or spiritual experiences. We shouldn't be surprised by this either. Humans are spiritual animals, the animum metaphysicum, as Schopenhauer said. So this is exactly what we should expect. When marrying, where does the woman's previous money go into? This is a really basic question. Like traditionally, the father actually gives his daughter money to help her set up with the husband for their new life together. It's called a dowry. So a lot of this stuff isn't new and it shouldn't be weird to you. It just goes into the new marriage. Simple as that. Like you can save together, and you can buy a home together. That's it. How do you rate Rich Cooper's take on masculinity and his take of the Christian pillmen? I don't know who the Christian pillmen are. I also don't pay any attention to Rich Cooper or know what his take on masculinity is. I would guess from the way that this question is phrased that he is a red pill guy, in which case I'm guessing that he thinks that sex before marriage is okay and contraception is okay, in which case he doesn't disagree with anything fundamental about the sexual revolution or feminism, because they wanted both of those things too. They wanted sex without marriage and they wanted contraception. Those are the two big pillars that feminism was built on. And then abortion came next. That's like pillar number 3. Is it all right for a virgin Christian man to marry a woman who was formerly promiscuous but repented? I'm not a Protestant, so I don't make things up. The Catholic Church teaches that you can, as such a man, marry such a woman. Is it ideal? No. Can you? Yes. Tips on overcoming sloth and gluttony. This is the same for any vice. What you have to do is practice the opposed virtue. And virtue and vice are to do with repeated habits. So the more you eat the donut, drink the milkshake, the more that you put off doing what you're supposed to do, although technically sloth isn't really about laziness, it pertains to the spiritual life in particular, and not putting in the effort in your prayer life or in following the precepts of the church to actually work for the good things that God has promised. So it's not believing that the effort is really worth putting in. That's sloth specifically. But I think you just mean laziness. So I'll give you another example. You put off workouts. You don't do the work that you know you should do. You have to find an entry point which is manageable for you. So have a low barrier to getting the workout done. Then just start doing it more and more. It will come more naturally to you. Then you can make it a bit tougher. You can increase the amount of work you expect yourself to do once you've actually ingrained that new habit properly. With gluttony, you should avoid the food that is really tempting you. Gluttony is to do with food and drink. So an alcoholic, for example, he shouldn't be around alcohol and he shouldn't be drinking it. He needs to avoid the occasion of sin because it's too tempting. Super chat from Oi 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 Oi. Thanks, man. Bless. You're like a dad. It's mad. Well, thanks a lot for the super chat, and I'm glad that I'm able to help you. How do you discern if you're ready to date court? Currently in school studying CS, part of me is scared it will be too much of a distraction from school. I don't like the use of the word discern there. I'm not sure that dating, courting, or even marriage really is a discernment process. If you are not too far away from being able to actually get married, let's say age 19, 20, 21, you can get married around them. And you've found a girl that you're attracted to and you want to start getting to know her better to see if you're a good fit for each other. So you date her to learn more about her character, then you're ready to date, right? That's it. If you're not in a position to get married anytime soon, then I think dating isn't a great idea because inevitably the kinds of feelings between you and the girl that you're dating that lead to actions that are only permitted within marriage, those feelings will start arising. So if there's a long time period between the period of dating and actually getting married, basically that means that the chance of you being tempted beyond your capacity to resist goes up and up and up. It becomes an occasion of sin for you and for her. So that's why it's a bad idea. What are your thoughts on Jay Dyer? Would you debate him? About what? I think that he's got some really good videos on a lot of topics, and I've learned a lot from him. My wife likes listening to him as well. People that I don't like her listening to. I'll just say don't have that on in the house. But he talks a lot of sense. He likes to debate people on Eastern Orthodoxy versus Catholicism, on the Papacy in particular. And there's a ton of those debates out there already. Haven't seen anybody changing each other's minds on it. And I've got a pretty low view of the potential for debate to actually do that anyway. I think that it's about more than just the arguments back and forth, because there's a spiritual component to it as well. So you can win a debate or you can lose a debate, but you might actually be in the right. Like I've seen that quite a few times. So that's my low view of debate in general. I think it's largely a waste of time when you're dealing with some topics. The theologian Soloviev said the same thing regarding Orthodoxy versus Catholicism. He said that when it comes to that particular question, there's an element of um, pride and also hardness of heart that means that rational argument and debate is only going to go so far. So that's that. Um, what do I think he gets wrong about Catholicism? Well, the fact that he thinks it's wrong, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be Catholic. If one's wife says she wants to work and doesn't want to stay at home, what should the man do? I don't think you are married and you are worrying about stuff in the future and you have all these weird theories in your mind and you're thinking about how to be a patriarch on paper and you should be less anxious. The answer to that is so simple. You just say no. Women should cover their heads, true or false, according to biblical teaching. I don't know what you mean by biblical teaching. I see over 39,000 Protestant sects all disagreeing about what biblical teaching is. So, what is it? I know what the actual teaching of the Catholic Church is. I can look at that. But when it comes to biblical teaching, I don't even know what you mean by the phrase. Does being charitable towards people in general have its limits? Not sure what you're thinking of there in particular, or what your understanding of charity is. I'm guessing you're saying, should you sometimes judge someone or maybe hurt their feelings? And the answer there is yes and yes. So Aquinas, for example, says that the virtuous man will sometimes not shrink from bringing sorrow to those among whom he lives. So sometimes it's actually the right thing to do to offend or to sting someone with a correction or a remark. I'm guessing that your question is about, should you always avoid conflict and always be nice to people? Not necessarily. You want to assume the best of them the whole time, and you don't want to judge them rashly. But sometimes you're going to need to judge them once you've actually looked into it and you can see that there's something going wrong that's bad for them spiritually. It's bad for you spiritually. It's a failure on your part if you don't help to correct that. Okay, we got through all the questions. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Take care.